Thank you, Lewis. Thank you so much. I'm told that I always sound like I'm hoarse, and I don't know why, but anyhow. I was told to talk about the history of Pride. Lewis and I worked really, really hard on the first Pride, and I worked diligently on the second Pride, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story. This is from chapter 28 of my book, The 16th Second. In March 2013, I was approached by my dear friend Lewis Tolliver Jr. to help with the inaugural Acadiana Pride Festival, which stood for people representing individual differences and experiences. It would be the Acadiana's very first gay pride celebration, and I jumped on board immediately and was elected vice president at the next meeting. While Lewis focused his efforts on marketing and promotions, I took on the task of actually building the entire festival from the ground up. It was exhilarating to have a brand new project to work on. I was handed a real mission with a real end goal, which is exactly what I've been searching for. Together with the board, we wrote a set of bylaws and set up a nonprofit organization, which was in itself a huge task. We spent an entire meeting discussing whether or not to include the letter Q in LGBTQ, and I want Lewis to talk a little bit about that, because I was one of the stalwarts that were against it. Yes, the letter Q is that serious. It's important to remember that I grew up in a generation where the word queer was recognized as a gay slur. I had been labeled queer before, in addition to faggot, and a few other colorful names. While it took me some time to understand that many of this younger generation identified as queer rather than gay or lesbian, I was proud to see that they had taken back the word queer from the vocabulary of hate and changed its meaning to love. Louisiana Words soon became one of the most anticipated pride events each week, allowing many who felt they would otherwise not have a voice to share a piece of themselves and help the LGBTQ community get together and celebrate life in all of its forms. It also kept everyone looking forward to the upcoming festival. It was the weekend after the Acadiana Cares Red Ribbon Ball that I received a phone call from one of the volunteers. His name was Christopher Hebert, but he went under the pseudonyms of Biscuit and Biscuita Stevens. Biscuit, as he preferred to be called in male form, was an outcast. He was shunned by the community, and most people barely talked to him, or talked at him or about him, or just ignored him. Even worse, they just pretended he wasn't there. It was a horrible scene to witness, and I think that I would even agree that he brought some of this upon himself, but it wasn't his fault at all. Biscuit had both a physical and a mental disability that prevented him from behaving in a manner that most people would call normal. He sometimes lacked filters and spoke without tact. But he was extremely talented and always tried to achieve his dreams. He knew that his time on earth was not long, so he made the most of every day. Damn, he was on American Idol. Were you? Probably not. Of course, he was singled out as what not to do on American Idol, but he was on freaking national television in a singing competition. And I asked again, were you? I always admired him for that. Biscuit told me that he wrote a poem for Louisiana Words, but that he was very scared to present it. I assured him that there was nothing to be scared of, that I would empty the show that night, and I'd stand right next to him for moral support. On that particular night, Louisiana Words, Biscuit showed up in drag as Biscuita Stevens, and she had something to say. Biscuit had remained in constant contact with Lewis and me over the previous week, but neither of us had any idea what he was writing. He just told us that it was something important and that he was scared. It became apparent once Biscuita started speaking that he no longer needed me standing right beside him to give him permission that he previously thought he needed. No, tonight was her night, and on this night Biscuita Stevens brought down the house. Her poem was called The Colors of the Rainbow. She spoke so eloquently about how love, nature, and life. She spoke of the colors and how each of them shimmered in prisms when the day would go from morning to night to dusk. She spoke about each of the colors and how they made her feel. And then she got to the color red. And she said, when I see the color red, I see hate. You all look at me as if I'm some kind of a monster, and you all make fun of me behind my back. I'm a human being just like the rest of you, and you purposefully hurt me. Why? I don't understand. I just want to be loved like the rest of you. Red should be for love, and I don't feel that from my own community. What am I supposed to do when my own community doesn't even want me? I don't like feeling hate, but I do, and it's your fault. Please show me some love. I think I earned it. That night, the entire room was completely silent for about 5 seconds. Then the thunderous roar of applause from the audience came, one clap at a time. I, then Lewis, then the rest of the audience gave Miss Sweetie Stevens exactly what she wanted: love and a standing ovation. Miss Sweetie Stevens was absolutely right, and she had called everybody out in public about the way she was being treated by her own community. You see, Biscuit was one of those drag queens that many people made fun of, and though they thought it was behind her back, she heard everything. She once told me later, "I hear all the horrible things they say about me. They think that I can't hear them, but I do. Only I hear it twice as loud as they think it hurts." And it does hurt. It shook me to the core to realize that at some point I had been one of those people who hurt her, and I apologized to Miss Sweetie Stevens. It made me feel better because I did the right thing, but I don't think she felt any different at all. She already knew that and understood that tomorrow nothing would have changed, and that hurt me even more because I knew that she was right. I think that Miss Sweetie Stevens felt the love of her community for that one night, but she also recognized that one night couldn't change the world. Well, Miss Sweetie Stevens, that night certainly changed my world, and I will always love her for that. Christopher Biscuit Hebert died on February 12, 2009. Sorry, I need to read this out. So let me vent. Every community has a Biscuit, someone who is constantly ostracized for being not like the others. We are taught to live our lives as individuals and to freely express ourselves. Yet when someone expresses themselves differently than what is the accepted norm, they are shunned for being the exact person we encourage them to be, themselves. On that night, I was taught to love a biscuit, whether it was plain or nutty or bedazzled or anything else. Not all biscuits are the same, but they all deserve to be loved. And for those of you who still make fun of our beloved biscuit, you need to know this. Christopher Hebert did more advocating for persons with disabilities than many of you will probably ever advocate for anything in your life. He'd spoken to Congress in Washington, D.C. on more than one occasion, and he actively worked with the Louisiana legislature advocating for equal rights for people with disabilities. As a matter of fact, Louisiana's then Governor, John Bel Edwards, attended his funeral and handed a proclamation to his family in honor of his service to our community. I wanted to be certain to include this in my story, because nobody ever got to tell his story. So the next time you think of making fun of someone because of their disabilities, think about what you have done to make the world a better place for everyone. Hopefully it will change your mind and your heart before you say something negative about something or someone whom you know nothing about. I say all of this knowing that in the past, I was one of those shameful people. Ran over, mic drop.